parental advisory is in place.
Just like that jolt of caffeine you need just to tolerate the world around you. It's the QueerCentric with your host, Queer Lead Jonny.
Hello, everyone. It is another, actually more exciting episode of the QueerCentric than we've had in a while. It's always fun when you come in on Tuesdays. This is an extra special show. You know that I had Zachary Zane on, the author of the book, BoySlut. Kurt will put a little thing down in the bottom. Remember, you can go to our website and buy this book because we want to support Zachary for sure. And I thought, how fun would it be if I could find other people in this town who read it? And shockingly enough, I did just that. Now, this is going to be chaos, so get ready. Get ready for the ride. We have three amazing guests who aren't afraid to speak out, and we're going to talk about each of our experiences with this book of BoySlut and what it's like to be men in the queer spectrum. And remember, on our show, queer really is everyone. Everybody's welcome in that spectrum, and it's a beautiful place to be without rules, and that's what I think about the queer community. We just get to be. And so we have welcomed three fantabulous, intelligent gentlemen to the spectrum. Why don't we start by telling the audience our names?
Hi, I'm Andrew Mark Carlos.
I'm Dave the Bamf. If you're lonely, come to Dave_the Bamf at Instagram. And I am probably the straightest guy in this room, and with this crowd, that's not saying much.
Exactly.
Self-promotion already, I like it.
Then yo soy Andrew Mark, all socials.
Ian Kelly, thanks for having me back again.
Third time.
I mean, I might as well. Ian.xk on Instagram, please follow.
Yes.
Why not?
I feel like, remember how, Saturday Night Live have the 10 Timers Club? And all
Right.
that? We're just going to get you a jersey next time.
I love that.
I mean, that'll be fun. Plus, I've had many friends, listen, no shade, but I've had many friends. I had a friend when I was younger who would introduce me to his new boyfriend. And first of all, I told him, don't tell me their name. They're not going to be around long enough. Right. So we'll just give them a jersey. And that's easy. Which is fun. You go. You have it. But yeah, I just talked to him. I haven't seen him in 20 years, and he just sent me a note the other day. I was like, remember what an asshole I was?
You're like, how many jerseys are we up to?
And then I'll be jealous. I will be so jealous. So first I want to talk about, there is an interesting quote at the beginning of this book that I kind of think sums up what we're going to be talking about today. And Zachary Zane says, men, by and large, have been left out of the sex positivity movement. And so he wrote this book that is all about, he's proudly, loudly bisexual, and also not afraid to share in the human experience of telling you that he enjoys everyone, and he loves sex, and he's a sex columnist for Men's Health magazine. But that was an interesting phrase to start with, and I think there's a point to be made there. So let's start with, I know when I first read this book, I read it in preparation to talk to Zachary Zane. So glad I read the book. But it is, even for me, there were shocking moments, and to go on the ride from when he's a child all the way through to where he is today, it's fascinating, but I learned more than I didn't realize I didn't know. So let's start with when did you first hear about the book? What made you want to read it?
So I've been a fan of Zachary Zane since, let's say, during the pandemic. I was doing a little Googling. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, I've Googled Zachary Zane.
No, but actually it was in the book where Zachary Zane said he Googled bi man. And
That's right.
I've been actually on the same journey as him because, well, I guess, shortened version is I grew up in a religious household, in the Hispanic culture, it's called machismo. It's just like, you're the man, But, everyone knew I was different.
Yeah.
And I liked girls, but when I started liking the guys, they were like, what?
Yeah.
So.
And did it confuse the fuck out of you? Because did you even know that was an option in your world?
No, because I'd be like, hey, dude, check her out. I was like, oh, yeah, she's hot. She was like, oh, look at that guy next to her. It's like, what? It's like,
right.
You guys don't
you
feel
were
that
fine.
way.
Still.
Exactly. And it's funny because he's also talking about how in his childhood that people were saying that, oh, we didn't know that it was homophobic to say, hey, that's not right.
Right.
Except, when you started saying, oh, this label actually fits me.
Yeah.
And Zachary and I are about the same age, so a lot of the references were just like, oh, shoot, okay, that right. I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Even though, like, y'all can tell, I grew up in Texas and California.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
they say queers and steers, you know.
Yeah.
That's why they kicked me out and sent me to
You're
Spokane.
like, and both.
And both. No, but, like, it was the same experience. And
Yeah.
I felt like, thank you for writing this, Zachary, because I felt like, you know, my experiences are valid.
Right.
That
And
I'm
it'll
normal.
gives you permission to be you when you read
Exactly.
someone else's story. Dave, you come from a whole different side of the world.
No, I'm from
in how
Spokane,
we
too.
have. Is this happening live? What was it like being? Because where I'm super gay, you are on the other side of the spectrum. You're in the queer. You identify in the queer world. What was it like reading a book like this for you, from your point of view?
I mean, so I did the audio version just because it's easier for me.
Yeah.
While
Valid.
I'm at work, and the best part is, like, there were a couple times I'm just sitting there.
Wait, out loud while you were
No,
there?
on my headphones.
I was gonna say.
And I'm just sitting there. Someone comes
And
over to
you're
talk
fired.
to me, and he said something, and I'm just like, "What?" And my coworker's like, "Dave, you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, fine. Nothing about penises and throats. We're good.
Yeah.
Fine." Honestly, it was eye-opening for me because it's like we know I'm on my journey right now, and I'm trying to figure out
We all are, and it'll
my
never end.
with the divorce and figuring out
Right.
the way I am now, and I'm just like, I identify with this a little bit, and wasn't aware I did.
Yeah.
And
And
as
I
I'm
think-
listening to it, I'm like, well, I'm not appalled by this. So,
Right. What I love about Zachary being, I mean, we've talked on our show a lot of times about the evolution of how we treat bisexuals in the queer world, because when I was in my 20s, boy, it was not cool. Like the jokes about, you know, this
Switch
is...
header, or if you're
Yeah,
confused.
or if you're like, well, you're bi now, gay later.
Mhm.
You know,
Well,
that was the thing.
And I think, just to jump in, that was one of the interesting points of the books. Like, for me reading it, I could see a lot of correlations of my coming out journey in the, you know, late 90s, 2000s, very, like, similar.
Right.
But it's interesting how that conversation is different for bisexual people
Right.
in the last, you know, 10 or so years.
Yeah.
And the fact that men couldn't be bi, you know, outwardly bi.
Yeah.
And it was easy to not, because you're attracted to women, so I have a
Yeah,
relationship
so
with
if
a
you needed
woman,
to hide.
and I never really have to acknowledge that other piece. So growing up, when you did meet somebody who was like, I think I'm bisexual, 9 times out of 10, they were going to come out as gay in the next 20 minutes.
Yes,
Because
right.
the bisexual men still didn't feel comfortable saying they were bi, but the gay men couldn't live that fake life, and so it was like
Yeah.
that stepping stone to, like, ugh, people won't think I'm so different or so weird if I'm still a little bit
Right.
straight.
Exactly.
And then they start living,
Yeah.
you know, their life and realize, okay, never mind.
Right.
So it's
Right.
interesting how that conversation has changed, and that there's a voice for people like that.
Right.
Like you mentioned, like he wants to be with you. Google bisexual men, that
Right.
Zachary Zane pops up, and thank God, because that's good information,
Yeah.
and it's something that I think what I worry about is the people that need to read that book aren't the ones that are going to pick it up and read it.
Right. I worry sometimes because, first of all, there's been this big push. We need to get this in more of these local bookstores. And
Yeah.
finally, it is happening. But, you know, remember how hard it was when you bought your first porn magazine if you're until you were so nervous. Even
Or
though
even
it's
just
in
walking
green.
into like a sex shop
Yeah.
when you're
How?
young and like. And now you're like, when you're older, I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but now it's like you walk into one, you're
Well,
like,
not
oh,
even
yeah.
that,
It's like you're
no
going
big
in
deal.
7-Eleven. It's like, all right, 3 Musketeers, 3-inch dildo, we're good.
Yep, exactly.
Well, you mentioned growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s. For me, in the early 2000s, it was hard because, like, there was this magazine called XY. It's for, I don't know if you guys remember that, but
Oh,
it was for young guys who identify.
yeah.
And just walking down the street, like, my teacher actually found it in my backpack and was like, what's this? It's like, there's shirtless guys in there. There's
Right,
no dicks,
right,
no
yeah,
asses.
exactly.
My parents found XY magazine in my bedroom. That was one of the first times
Yeah.
my mom was like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
XY magazines, and my friend had worked at Premiere Video at the time.
Yeah.
So I stole, with his permission, hopefully Premiere Video isn't still a thing.
It's not.
I
It's
borrowed the first season of Queer's Folk.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
yes!
So that was how my parents found out, is that my mom found XY magazines and season 1 of Queer's Folk on
Right.
DVD in my room. that I would put into my compact computer and watch by myself in the middle of the night, like, oh my god.
And speaking of media and how we were exposed to things, I mean, one of the things you remember back in those days, especially on Queer as Folk, that bisexuals, we could see women bisexuals on TV.
Yeah.
Seeing men as bisexuals, it didn't seem like it was allowed. So you were just like, well, it's easier for us to imagine. Of course, it's because I think straight men were in the writer's room.
Yeah.
It was filled with heterosexual men, and they're like, well, I can definitely imagine two women together.
And to, again, Zachary Zane, there's a moment in the book where he mentioned something exactly along those lines, where, like, for men to be bisexual, it's like, that's not appropriate. His counselor or therapist even said, like,
they didn't
this isn't a
exist.
thing for men.
Well, that's actually
Where
the same era,
it is for women, but it is not for men.
Exactly, and actually lied and said there were no studies that it was. It was, and I'm like,
and I remember
it happens all the time.
That time period where it was like, well, women's sexuality is fluid, but men's are fixed.
Yeah,
and that was just like what you always heard.
Yeah. Well, one of the points that Zachary makes in the book is he said it's not as easy for a bisexual person to be visible, to have visibility. They have to stand on the rooftop and scream, I'm bisexual, because unless they do that, we don't always know. And how fair is that? So he hates the term visibility.
Yeah.
He understands the need.
Yeah.
So,
one, to his point as well, like if you are bisexual and in a relationship with a woman, you're in a straight relationship.
Right,
If you're in a relationship with a man, you're in a gay relationship.
Then you're gay, yeah.
So you're
you
like, you might be bisexual, but whoever you're dating dictates what you're portraying to the world.
Exactly.
Which is also kind of fucked up.
Well, it's actually
the whole thing is
So there's a funny side note. So he was talking about that, and I just remembered, this is going to sound hilarious and stupid, but again, growing up in Texas.
Yeah.
So my sister and my brother-in-law raised me, and the person I was afraid to come out to was them as bisexual, because I'm failing them by not dating a woman.
Right.
So it's weird because, like, as a bisexual, it's hard that, like, you're, when you're with your gays, it's just like, oh my gosh, until you're like I said earlier, it's just like, it's a reverse with my homies.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, she's hot. It's like, wait, what?
Don't you think it's because we've had to learn? I think every single one of us, wherever we're on the spectrum, you learn how to change the way you approach things depending on who you're with.
Yeah.
Certain people you feel more open with. Your friend at Premiere Video, that
Yeah.
you felt like you could do that. Dave, what's been your experience with that? Because you hang out with a lot of us, super gay guys.
Growing up, there was always that social stigmatism that, oh, she's bi, that's hot. He's bi, no, he's gay.
Yeah.
Like, that's all you heard. And it's like, okay, well, why was it hot when a girl did it?
Yeah.
But when a guy did it, it was like, eh. So, like, thoughts never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
But then you start looking back and you're thinking about what you did with your homies, and you're like, oh, we weren't just playing around with our penises.
But we were.
That wasn't a game.
We were playing around.
That was exploration.
Yeah. I did
because we were like, we can't talk about this.
Yeah. I dated the quarterback during the summer, and we were best friends. But during the school year, he wouldn't speak to me. But it was really good, so I just put up with it.
I mean, that is almost a plot line from season 1 Queer as Folk.
I know! It's like they stole it from me.
Yeah.
I do
Is
have
your
to
middle
say
name
this.
Justin?
I know. I do have to say their life was a lot hotter than what my teenage years were.
I have still to this day never been to a gay bar that looks like that at all.
No, never.
Even the best gay bars that I've ever been to.
Babylon.
Yeah. I almost called it Equinox, but that's a big gay gym in LA where not a lot of working out happens. Not that way.
I didn't even know the bar when it was gay.
So, with each of us in this room on this panel right now, how was your comfort? We talked a little bit about your comfort level. That coming out was still a little jarring, as it can be for many of us. But what was your comfort level with sex as you were growing up for each of you?
I would say I was a late bloomer.
Yeah.
But for me, it's weird because I'm more of an effeminate bisexual. Sex with guys is easier, but sex with girls, it's just like, for them it's exotic. Just like, okay, sure, why not? I'm still getting lucky.
I mean, true. But then do you feel like you're more objectified in that side of the
I would
spectrum?
say that, like he touches about this in the book too, like, they treat me as exotic. Like,
Yeah.
I'm actually like, oh, poor me, I'm seen as a third. But no, like, I get free drinks and stuff like that at the club because, like, it's always the couples that approach me because, like, oh my god, you're bisexual, you fit both of us. You're
Exactly.
you're taboo.
Yeah.
Girls always want a performance.
I think that's what it is. It's
Like, guys are just like, you, me, let's go. Girls are like,
honestly,
what you got for me?
as someone that likes both, or all, technically,
Yeah.
we'll touch that later. But, like, I feel like when, like, hooking up with guys or making love,
Yeah.
it's easier with guys.
Why
It's just
does
like,
that
you
always make
me
you feel-
now. With
Yeah.
girls,
Yeah.
like, it's a whole entire performance, It's just like...
There's more of
Song, a
connection
dance, then you might
expected.
just only get a cookie.
Well, and a lot of Dan Savage talks about this quite a bit.
I love
also,
Dan Savage.
Where for women, there's still that piece of having to worry about their safety, about
Yeah.
who they can trust, about going home with a man at the end of the night. That could be dangerous for a woman, where
Yeah.
men don't necessarily. And yes, it can still be dangerous, and yes, things happen.
Yeah.
But by and large, they don't happen
But I
with the
think
frequency as they do with women.
Right.
Yeah.
And
so
he-
they're by default more hesitant.
He even has a chapter in the book where he, one of the headlines is this how I die today?
yeah.
Mhm.
Because it's still
Yes.
a thing that
Like
I'm
the
going to
Rhino
go...
murderers and
Yeah.
yes.
Am I going to go meet... So
Yeah.
I agree that it's way more dangerous, I would think, for women. But yeah, it is this... I mean, we're out there finding ourselves with the strangers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But
Because
it's
there's
also
no other option.
like our perception on gender as a Western society, because he does also talk about like that one woman that he hooked up with in college, right?
Yeah.
It's just like I'm not gonna slut shame her, and then it ends up horrible, and then he ends up slut shaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just like the title of the book's BoySlut.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's like we're rethinking this with sexuality and with us in the queer community.
Yeah.
I feel like we're in the pioneers because it's funny you mentioned queer as folk earlier. It's like Brian Kinney with the whole entire like
My God.
there are people who will like like straight people will hate you to your like
Yes.
behind your back.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where we're still in that era where if you're more open about your sexuality, I truly believe this, don't at me, but I truly believe if you're more open with your sexuality, you're also more open with gender roles and stuff
Right.
like that.
I agree. And don't you think now, I am older than everybody in this room, but at least I'm closer to Ian in the... Do you find that as you get older, the comfortableness, like when I first came out, preacher's kid, very shy.
Yeah.
I had way more sex 10 years after I came out because you learn to be more comfortable with your body, with
Yeah.
sex, and now I'm having the best sex of my
And what
life.
you like, what you're okay with.
Yeah.
And there was, I think, that period of time, I mean, we're a very puritanical society
Oh, I
by
want to talk about
default,
that in a minute.
which is interesting because you're not supposed to talk about sex. You're definitely not supposed to be having it,
Yes.
but everything's about sex.
Yeah.
Movies, TV shows, music,
It's
everything
very
is like
Victorian era.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
like all of our entertainment is based around sex because that's what sells. But
Yep.
don't talk about it and definitely don't have it.
Yeah.
And so growing up in that time period, I had girlfriends in high school because that's what you're supposed to do, and
Exactly.
there were really no gay references in pop culture at the time. I mean, there was Will and Grace.
Right. Which is like a neutered version.
Yeah,
Gotta
and
love
Ellen, which was the same thing.
The Madonna and Britney kiss.
Yes, Madonna and Britney kiss, but even
boy,
that's
the
like,
flack that came out of that too.
like
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it was two women kissing, but was it a gay culture moment? No.
Was it a gay
shock.
baiting moment?
Shock.
You know what I mean?
And so even when I had girlfriends, like, you would do things,
Yeah.
but even that was like awkward, weird, and like I always had this like thought like you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing
right.
this.
Right.
Um,
Well, I also had to have the picture of the hot guy in the back of my head. to get
yes,
through it. Yeah.
yes,
And no shade to the ladies. It just is not how I'm wired.
Yep.
So
And
you
even
have
after
to find a way.
coming out and having boyfriends and dating people, it was still that sense of like being tame or
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
really knowing what you like either. So I agree. 10 years later, after you've had pros and cons of relationships and successes and fails and whatever, you start to realize what you like, what's okay, and it's
Yeah.
like most of this just is not a big fucking deal anyway.
Thank
so why
you.
are we making this?
Thank you.
Like, why are we making the center point of this? Like, this is a problem. We can't talk
Right.
about it. We definitely shouldn't be doing it.
I do
None of
find
this is a big
this
deal.
this dichotomy that we have in our culture about we over sexualize a lot of things and then we say, oh, don't look
punish people
directly
for
in the face. it's this really weird agreement
Right.
that we have to be, what's the word when we go against something that we say we believe? What's the word? See, because I'm not a hypocrite. I can't think of the hypocrite. I try not to be a hypocrite. It's very hypocritical of our society.
Yeah.
Well,
And,
it's also back to, like, in
Yeah.
BoySlut, when he was talking about his... see, even mentioning it right now, I'm giggling. But, like, his psychiatrist balls when he was a kid,
Yes.
remember?
Oh, the grapefruits!
The grapefruits.
yeah, and he couldn't stop. He
Yeah,
was
and then
fixated
he
on
told
it.
the psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist was like, "You're normal. This is normal." So even science is telling us this is normal,
Yeah.
but still, as a society, it's hard for us to think about it.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say that same like cultural aspect where everything that you see in like it's always women that are naked, women that
Yes.
are sexualized, but in reality, you better not do that or you're a slut.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
who's going to date a slut? Like that's like
I mean,
society's
yeah, right?
Yeah.
All of us.
out here.
But
Society's mentality is like we're going to make women
Yes.
the objects of sex and everything that we
Yeah.
listen to, watch, whatever. But if they are actually that way in real
and
life,
then
demonized.
actually in culture, if we the crazy group that decides what ratings are for movies, and if you get into that, let me tell you, it's a whole.
we can have a
weirdness.
whole
Yeah.
conversation
But if
just
you have
on
a
that.
full frontal woman, that's a rated R.
Yes.
If you have a full frontal man, you're looking at NC-17.
Yes.
So already there is this separation that we still need. The women need to look like cattle and like
Yeah.
part of this is just natural.
And
the
that
guys,
is such a
you don't do
huge
that.
change from 70s, 80s, even
Oh,
early
yeah.
90s. Like you like, especially 80s horror movies. There's
Oh
full
my
frontal
God.
male
Yeah.
nudity in half of them.
That's
And it's
why
just
we
like-
watched them.
Yes, that's why we still continue to watch them.
Yes.
Well, you think that
Beautiful.
we're progressing as a society, but
Yeah.
somewhere along the way, the 90s,
Yeah.
things shifted,
Yeah.
and these super conservative Christians got into places of
Thank
power,
you. And that's
things
what we're
start
looking
to
at.
turn.
There's more than one chapter that Zachary Zane talks about shame,
Mhm.
and so he talks about this religious, just centuries of what we have used to shame people into, because that's how you control them.
Yeah.
So we both know from things that we've just said, you and I have that religious
Yes.
background. I want to go to each of us and talk. Now, Dave, in your upbringing, did you have a religious aspect, and how did it affect you when it came to your sexuality?
My religious background was weird
Like all of us.
because I went to Saturday Sunday school where
Saturday, Sunday school,
it
already
was
confusing.
the Spokane Christian Center here in
Okay,
town.
yeah.
But they pick you up on the bus on Saturday. You'd ride on the school bus out to the church. They do this giant church thing with just kids,
Yeah.
and then you'd go home. And on the bus ride back, there was the best. They had a reward. It's called the Quiet Seat Prize.
The quiet
And so,
seat prize.
like, I look back and I'm like, that was fucked up.
Yeah.
But you take me to church and then you don't want me to talk about shit on the way home. What the
Yeah,
hell?
no,
Yeah.
it's
Like
gotta
you're saying,
sink
don't
in.
question about it. But I was given the option to walk away from that. My mom's
Yeah.
like, "Do you want to keep going?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"No."
Did any part of it, was there shame involved in yours? I'm not
I
trying to
don't-
blame religion for everything.
I don't-
But listen, you gotta
so-
take some responsibility.
I know I spent a good portion of my years going.
Yeah.
I don't remember any of it.
See, that's
Because, like-
good.
Like, and I think it's just because, like, I still don't believe in that path. Like,
Right.
personally, I'm more Norse pagan,
Yeah.
which
yeah.
is where my beliefs lie. Because it's like,
Yeah.
there can't just be this one.
Right.
common
And a little
infinite.
more freedom in
And-
sexuality.
and- oh,
in
there
that-
really is.
In that thought process.
But, like I said, ladies, if you're free, Dave the Bamf.
But
I'm
yeah,
lovely,
it's a
okay?
I'm just thinking about Loki and the horse right now.
Oh,
hey,
oh.
there was more
I
than a
mean-
horse. Every one of the Norse monsters is Loki's child.
Yeah.
So, like, the
That's why
world...
he's a
Listen,
bisexual
the
god.
original boy
his,
slut.
the world serpent, the giant
Well-
snake, that's his snake.
Yeah. Look at Zeus. He was out there giving it to every
Oh,
animal.
Zeus was fucking everybody but his
everything.
wife.
Yeah, exactly. Did you have a piece of
It's
religion?
similar when I was young, and I mean, like, I would say probably like, I don't know, 8, 10. I would go to Sunday school, and it wasn't like I wouldn't go with my family. My mom worked Sundays, so it was like I would get dropped off at Sunday school, and then
Right.
I would get picked up when it was over.
Yeah.
But I don't remember it ever being the way churches are now. I don't remember ever hearing anything political at the church that I was dropped off
Right,
at. It was
yeah.
like you got little pamphlets with like Bible stories and
Mm-hmm.
whatever in it. And
Veggie
pass out Kool-Aid on the way.
it was pre-Veggie Tales,
Okay.
unfortunately, but
We had a lot of VeggieTale clips of
That was a whole thing.
but I don't have any recollection of it being shamey when I was there.
Yeah.
But it was definitely not for me. It was the same thing where my parents never forced me to go.
Right.
And it got to a point where it was like, I don't want to do that. And
Right.
they were like, okay, because they certainly weren't going.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's like,
My
I think,
parents tried to say that we had. Sorry, Mom. Tried to say that we had an option, but my mom is really good at guilt, and so you would choose not to,
Sure,
and she would
Baptists are
make
not Catholic.
Yeah, I know, right? They're a little close, and so you would get so much guilt from it that then you're just going to keep going.
Yeah.
Dude, can I tell you, when I stopped going to church at 30 years old, I still felt guilty.
yeah.
I was like, my friend was like, "You're 30, doesn't matter."
I feel weird going into churches now for social events.
Yeah, right. Well,
Like, I don't
it's like-
belong here.
True.
When I say no guilt, I mean, there wasn't anything around, like, sexuality or
Right.
anything like that, but there's still, like, the fire and brimstone,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
going to hell if you don't
the
follow
tattoo
the
I'm
rules.
getting one day is brimstone and fire.
Yes.
Right on my, because that was my whole entire.
Well, like, half of
upbringing.
mine are just occult symbols anyway,
Right.
all-seeing eye and snakes and...
And here's an interesting thing. So, for people in the queer world, it's not just about slamming religion. Was not my point in those conversations. It's that it's become so pervasive. The idea
Yes.
that sex is not, it's all kind of bad and
Yeah.
naughty. Religion helped to perpetuate that, and then it's become such a part of culture. Like you said,
The
there are
controlling
people
aspect
in
of it.
power that
Well,
are trying to
look, like,
control our
It's
bodies
interweaved
right
itself
now.
so much
Yeah.
that to untangle it's going to be years.
And whatever
Exactly.
the religion is, I mean, I love whatever religion you want to believe in, love that for you. I don't care what it is.
Thank you. It's none of my business.
But when it starts
mine's none of
interfering
theirs.
with other people's lives and when it
Yeah.
starts interfering with creating policy, well, now you've made it my
Right.
business.
Mhm.
So now I have to care about it.
Yeah, exactly, and that's where I am too. But I feel like we can't get away from the shame, whether it's that we grew up in the church and that was hard. There are wonderful congregations out there, just to make sure that we call reconciled congregations, that celebrate all of the spectrum, and I love them, and I think that's great. But I think you make a good point in we have to get to a point, though, in society where we empower ourselves enough to go to say to someone, I celebrate you in this belief for you. Me not believing it, celebrate me and just accept me as well.
Yeah.
Because it's so pervasive that I think even if kids are growing up without the shame in the religion, there's still shame with sex
Mhm.
in the world around us.
Societal, yeah.
It's like the Puritans came over to come to America, and then they brought all that puritanical bullshit with it.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I think that's what it is because like I'm still a practicing Catholic, but
Yeah.
I consider myself a colonized Catholic because like I'm Hispanic Filipino,
Yeah,
so
right.
it's like it's my culture too. But the thing is, I was once a youth minister, and I had queer kids walk up to me because I'm kind of obvious, and they'd be
No.
like, "Am I going to hell?"
Oh, right.
Right? And I'm just like, okay, did you do anything wrong? And it kind of reminds me of his mom in the book because they grew up in a traditional Jewish,
Yeah.
like, I feel like it's more of a Jewish.
Yeah.
But they still, like, celebrated that in
Yeah.
their family. And, like, you can tell from his language, a lot of Yiddish in there.
Yeah.
So my upbringing was more of that because we were colonized. Because it's more like, there's a little bit of mix in there.
Did you have some of the opposite then? Because I did notice this for a while when I was still with the church, but I was openly gay. That there was that, now I've got to fight fellow gays saying, no, I have a right to have this religion
Oh,
in my
yeah.
life.
So, so what's funny is he mentions being in water polo as a gay sport. So
Yes,
I was the
yeah.
only one that was out in 2004.
I mean, you were playing water sports.
Don't see, that's the thing. I was in swimming, I was in water polo, and I was just like, am I the only queer one here? Because I feel like...
Right? I love a good
again,
water
this was early
polo.
2000s, so that's when they were like, there's no such thing as bi. I'm just like, honey.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, there is.
That's so confusing, too. You know who you are, and someone's telling you
No.
don't exist. And you're like, wait.
Am I dead?
When I came out, it's so funny. My brother-in-law's brother is gay.
Mm-hmm.
And do I know if he actually said this? I don't. But when my mom started talking to me, she said, well, she had spoken to, probably my sister or whatever.
Right.
Like, well, Chris doesn't think that you're actually gay. And, I'm like 19, and it's like, first of all, I barely know this person.
Exactly.
And how the
That's
fuck would
funny.
he know?
But I feel like that's how it is in the gay community sometimes, because
Yes.
like, back to your question,
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the churches like the UCMs, like don't at me again, but you know you are. But UCCs, UCMs, a lot of them are just like, why do you go to the Baptist church? Why do you go to Catholic
Right.
church?
It's still like
You should be in the gay church.
Yes.
But for me, I'm just like, okay, this is my religion.
yeah.
And it's just like, we're actually at a point in the church where they're debating whether to bless same-sex unions. It's just like...
That always
there's-
makes me so sad.
I know, it's just like, we're slowly getting there baby steps.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
for me, it's like, it's my conviction. And like you said, it's like, as long as I'm not, like, beating someone over the head with a Bible, it's none of my business, it's none of their business.
Has anybody in this room seen the movie Saved with Mandy Moore?
Oh, that's what I feel.
Yes! Sorry, go see it if you haven't seen it. It's absolutely amazing. It's when Mandy was still a young pop star. But such a great, and she throws Bibles at people.
She is my least favorite famous person I've ever met.
Oh, you
Really?
met her?
And if Mandy Moore ever sees this,
This is all breaking down now. Like,
yeah,
okay.
let's, we can meet up and try it again. The rudest person I've ever met. Rudest
so
famous person
sad.
I've ever met.
Oh.
And she was performing
Right,
at the
see,
Knitting Factory, which
you're-
is so hilarious.
Oh, that is
No,
kind of
this, like,
odd for
It's like sets the time
for
frame.
Candy.
So like
Which, you know what I mean?
late
That was her big
2000.
song.
Yeah. So she was
Ah.
performing at the Knitting Factory, and it was one of those like, stand in line, meet and greet, get your
Right.
flat signed or whatever. She could not care less to be there, did not want to talk to anybody. My boyfriend at the time, obsessed. I mean,
Yeah.
he was fangirling, and she just gave no shits.
And yeah.
I'm like,
and
half of your job is just to make people like you.
exactly.
When you're a famous person, half of the job is
And I get
just
that's-
making
it's
people be
exhausting,
like,
yeah.
I like them.
I have to say, I have met many people that I've interviewed over the years many times, but in person, didn't. Not so nice.
Yeah.
I won't mention her name. I will tell you it's a her.
and then I'm over here name dropping.
But let's get to the next part. Is so there comes a time when, first of all, I wish culture allowed us to own ourselves more, because then it doesn't matter if you want to go to the straight church because they're not considered gay or whatever. It doesn't matter if this is what you want. Sadly, that's going to be way
Leave
past
me with my
our...
bells and incense, girl.
Yeah, right? But let's talk about that moment you finally are like, this is just me, and maybe we live it in shame for a while, but let's talk about hookup culture. Which is, I don't think it's just a gay thing, it's just that gays have specialized
It's
in it.
definitely not. And
Right?
again, just straight friends that I have, they're doing the same things.
Yes, thank you.
But
Now,
it's
yeah.
looked at differently,
Yes.
for sure.
Well, I do think we have streamlined it a little better.
We do
And-
a better job.
Yeah, 'cause, you know, I will say this for my lovely lady friends, they are much better at making us be a little more civil. Men.
Yeah.
And so, but when we're just left to the men, we're like, let's get
Wham
this
bam.
on. Yeah.
You got 10 minutes? Me too.
So, as you were coming
I
up,
need 5.
yeah, right? As you were coming up, Dave, what is hookup culture like when you're kind of out here and you're not, on your journey
Okay.
as if you are now?
So, before, I didn't even know what the fuck was going on. My wife, who we're now divorced,
Right.
finalizing them. It's so confusing. Brain.
We can say XY.
Yeah. So the ex-wife and I met while I was helping bar back at a gay bar because I was trying to get out and try
I
to build.
typically bareback at a gay bar, but okay, bar.
Ooh.
Yeah. No, I was behind the bar.
Yes.
Only bareback on days ending in
Oh, I
Y.
haven't tried that yet.
Oh, I'm telling you.
Bareback while you bar back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, this is
There's
the
OSHA
skills.
regulations, and then the
Skills.
Department of Health gets involved. And
And damn COVID.
there's some
I know.
licensing problems.
Somebody's
Just
like,
face
there's a
away.
hair in my
So-
drink.
So
In
I
front
was
of my salad?
now I was
Straight
probably
down.
in the wrong place for hooking up because I was hooking up at Irv's.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
down at
If you were
Irv's.
looking for a woman, it probably
Yeah,
was the wrong
yeah.
place.
Well, I didn't realize Irv's was a gay bar until about 6 months into going down there.
Are you, the Go-Go Boys didn't give that away?
No,
Running
I
around
was
doing
down on
body
Monday and
shots in there.
Tuesdays.
The
for-
6'4" drag queens in heels.
No, because Monday
Like,
and
I've
Tuesday
not seen a woman
were
like that since I was in the
they were
South.
Disney and Show Tunes karaoke nights, so you didn't really get a lot of them.
Oh,
And then the one
that's
time
the
I did
gayest
hook
night
up,
ever.
I didn't find out it was a drag queen till the next morning.
Oh!
And I'm like, that explains
Write
why
a
your
book.
mouth
First of
works
all,
so
good.
well.
Good
Chapter.
for her. I mean, in
know.
character.
Like
That's
I
amazing.
like
That's
still.
tucking
I know.
at college level.
Yeah.
Get that bitch on Drag Race.
We've got this. We've got this now. Probably best blowjob I've ever had.
Ooh.
I mean, leave it to gay guys.
Leave it to a drag queen
Yeah,
to give
yeah.
me the best head I've ever
Yeah.
done. They know what they're working with. They know what feels.
You know your equipment.
Yeah, they know the equipment well.
Yeah.
So, but then I met my wife down there,
Yeah.
my ex-wife, and we just ended up together.
Yeah.
Like, things just clicked and we stayed together.
Yeah.
So, like, hooking up never really happened for me.
Right.
Now...
Which is fine. Listen, I do want to give this disclaimer. Well, two, I forgot to give the one at the beginning. Parental advisory is in place.
We'll put that
We'll
together.
put
Can we cut that put first?
But
The
that's
following program may be appropriate for some
That's
viewers.
what's fun about this book is, like, you're going to get all the honesty you can ask.
If you heard us talking about BoySlut and said, my kid can watch this,
Right. Well, then
That's on
maybe.
you.
Yeah.
Jimmy, come here.
but
It's
now,
called BoySlut.
what's so
Yeah,
crazy...
What's going on when he's
is,
talking about this?
Like, I'm in the community, I'm working with the community,
yeah.
you know, to humble brag a little bit, I'm helping run Pride this
Yeah.
year and helping getting all the events
Right.
going.
We were exhausted.
So,
You were amazing.
there's so many guys that I could just... Done!
Yeah.
But, like, then I meet girls and I'm like,
Where
yeah.
is that?
And they're like, eh. And I'm like... Because I was
It is
to
a
one.
different list of,
And
I think.
She sent me a
what guys
picture,
are
and I'm like,
looking for.
"That's not your boobs." And she's like, "Yeah, I know." Now, if I sent a picture, if a guy sent me a picture, and I was like, "That's
Of
not
his
your,"
boobs?
and I'm like, "That's not your dick,"
I
I would
got you.
immediately have like 4, 5, 6 photos, different angles,
Yeah.
different lighting, immediately.
Right.
Guys are a lot more into hookup culture than women. I'm thinking.
I think it's a different.
because
we are
a girl
raised
can go out there
culturally
and be
different.
like, "Who wants it?"
Yeah.
And there's 20 or 40 guys.
Well, and like we were saying earlier, a girl who is more forward with her sexuality is labeled right away.
Mm-hmm.
Men, now gay men, we have our own already. Straight men are like, you're a bunch of hoes and everything, but there's a weird, like, they're fascinated.
Yes.
Right. So, but here's the
Speaking-
thing, and he brings it up in the book as well. He thinks that the anonymity and virtual distance of things like Grindr facilitate cruelty and enable all of the social isms and phobias to have more freedom. And here's the thing, like, I'm not giving up the apps because, you know.
Can we have a grinder for straight people that's not Tinder? Like, really a
That
app
is
that's
their version.
I hit the button, we fucking. Not I hit the button, I have to fight 50
That's not
other
Hinge.
dudes. No. None of
I
these
love
dating apps are real. I ended up with talking to a drug dealer on these dating apps, and I'm just like, nope, I'm out.
Well, and
Well,
let's
that's-
talk about what
That's
we
going to be
think.
on all of them.
I know,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
why I
every
backed
single
out.
one. So it is more accessible. It seems the apps are very much more
Yeah.
geared towards the gay man or the bisexual man who wants to be with a man at that time. Do we think that because there's a lot of anonymity involved, it's like the whole trolls online, you're hiding behind your
absolutely.
screen? Does it facilitate the no fast, no femmes, no Asians, that horribleness that happened
Well, I think
so long?
anonymity on the internet, just in general. I mean, look at open Reddit and find
Oh
any
my
comment
God.
feed, and that
Trauma.
anonymity just makes people nasty. Not all
Yeah.
people, but people that are
Right.
more inclined to be that way. You know,
Right.
having no face picture,
They will
no
say some
repercussions.
shit.
Yeah.
They will,
Yeah.
and I mean, I would assume that all of us have probably had somebody say something just ridiculously nasty
Right.
Mm-hmm.
in
So
anonymity on those
Yeah.
apps. Like,
Yeah.
where you're like, you wouldn't say that to another human in real life ever.
Yes, exactly. Or the cruelty, and you're like, do you you think I have no self-respect that I'm just going to let you? And they act like we're just going to take it. So some of them hope because they want that kind of vibe, and but some of them just downright want to destroy you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And every single time I'm like, well, I don't have a conversation with you. I will block you, and then I'm moving on.
Oh, yeah.
But that's that empowerment that I don't think we teach culturally, so that all aspects of our lives we can just own who we are.
Yeah.
And we can own the fact that we're constantly on a spectrum of the journey. The journey doesn't end until you're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
So
we
I'm
need to
close.
give ourselves we need to give ourselves permission to continue to grow. But some would say the apps are not facilitating that. Do you find apps helpful or harmful? We'll start there.
I mean, I think they are what they are. You know, they serve their purpose. And again, like, the older you get, the more you kind of give less fucks about a lot of these
Yeah.
things. And so I can totally relate to being, you know, if you're a 19-year-old and somebody says something that is just cruel to you on
Right.
an app, you're going to take that to heart and be
Right.
taken down from it.
Yeah.
But, you know, at
You're not
40, like,
jaded
you
yet.
can say whatever you want, and I'm just going to block you and move on. I
Thank you.
don't give a shit.
Because listen, I got no time and I'm tired.
And it's
Yeah.
and again, it's, you know, when you're younger, you're probably still coming out and figuring out who you are and what you like and how to navigate.
Right.
So it's more complex.
Right.
But teaching people, like, the apps are what they are. people are going to be dicks, whether they're on the apps or wherever. People are going to be dicks, and so teaching how to give less fucks in general about not only that, sex in general, relationships. Like you just need to like calm it down a little bit.
Yeah,
things are going to be fine.
Yeah. And don't, what is that old phrase? Don't take life too seriously. None of us get out of life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we do need to find that.
Yeah.
I never
As
asked that before.
See, it's good. I'm going to put on
Well, there was
t-shirt.
a big section in his book about how he thinks the two biggest impacts of the gay community were PrEP and Grindr.
Yes.
And, I mean, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And
Well,
even for all of its downfalls, if you are somewhere not in a big city, where else are you finding other gay people?
exactly. And let's give credit where credit's due. Apps like Grindr and those that came before everything gave a world of a bazillion other apps now. Like you can get very specific.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody can find what they're needing.
And they're all better than Craigslist.
Oh my god. Are they? You could get killed or have sex, and it was very easy either way.
And you get a free lap.
Yeah, free.
Yeah, get yourself a new TV while you're at it.
Right. But boy, isn't it interesting that, Congress took that down, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm old. That's where it all began for me. It's like nostalgia. But it was very dangerous. Very dangerous. So, with you, what do you feel when you look at the apps that are out there that are available? What do you feel about them? Good, bad?
Well, let's say that I didn't go to the Craigslist era. I'm more of the MySpace. That shut down. I had to move on to the other apps.
MySpace. I did love MySpace.
Oh my god! All I'm saying is the
Top
amount of
8
boyfriends I got from MySpace. I'm just
Well,
like,
and let's
we
talk
need to
about
bring that back.
The original high, such visibility for the first bisexual
Yes.
any of us ever knew was Tom.
Yes.
You know what I mean? He was. I remember the first time, I'm like, this guy is telling everybody he's bi. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it was the first real person.
Also for me, it's like Anna Paquin from True Blood.
I love True Blood.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
Because True Blood, actually, what's funny is I'm segue, but a little bit.
Yeah.
I love the vampire culture because it's sort of swayed in for bisexuality.
Because it is very sensual and it's a very.
It's sensual and it's just you live long enough,
Okay, now I have to ask the side note, and then we'll get back to the track. Buffy, did you watch Buffy?
See, that's another thing.
That's the only
Like
reason.
Spike, hello.
I was gonna say, okay, good. You can stay then. I was obsessed with Buffy, so.
But yeah, for the apps, I think that I'll go there. As a queer person of color, it's hard. Like, a lot of my hookups are from in person, and it's mostly straight buddies. And I'll tell you, some of them turned out to be straight because, bro, your head game, you're straight.
Yeah. Well, they're only barely there, yeah.
That's why I could say, I'm hooked up with straight guys, because it's just okay, buddy,
that is obvious. They're straight or they've never done it before.
But,
that speaks directly to what he was saying, that
Yeah.
he thinks things like Grindr kind of perpetuate this idea that we have a right to be, because I'm assuming, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, that you're alluding a little to that because you're a queer man of color, some of that, bigotry plays into it. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, because, full disclosure, I'm Filipino, Spanish, and Chinese, which means I'm part white, right? So I'm light-skinned. So I could only dream of what a lot of my dark-skinned brothers and sisters and siblings can feel, because a lot of people are just like, oh, wait, you're Asian? It's just well, it was the line that day.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of those isms do go in there, because, body types, age, abilities. Don't get me wrong, we do have our preferences. We do have what we are into.
Right.
I do too. But I feel like it's taken out that finesse, and he sort of touches on that, where we do have, as gays, a hookup culture.
Oh,
that,
hugely.
There's some sort of etiquette in there, don't be an asshole.
Yes, and there should be. Don't be a dick. That's should be the way it is. But this is something we don't talk about. I find it fascinating that you say, I'm going to go there. I hope you do go there. And I hope you go there in any environment that allows you to, because we can't change this disgusting part of who we are in a culture unless we do that. Which is why I love that he is not afraid of anything. And speaking of, here's a segue of things that he is not afraid of. The other thing that we've come to in 2023, we are getting more comfortable with our sexuality. We're getting more comfortable with what turns us on. The specificity of apps even allows for that. You can go to, I don't know how many, there are so many apps now for anything. that you're into.
We mentioned
real
Grindr, let's
specific
give
with
Scruff some love.
Oh,
let's give.
Okay. Growler and Scruff for the bears. That's the big thing. Sniffies is like huge right now.
They're having a moment.
Yeah, they're
And
having
like
a
we
moment.
talked about before, they're selling underwear.
Well, it depends
they're
on
just
what
like
city you're in, though.
they're
fuck
hitting
is a
whatever they
sniff?
can.
I'm sorry, I'm out of the loop here. What the fuck is a sniffy?
Sniffy is a
Oh.
really. You think you can hook up
Welcome
as
to our
a-
TED Talk.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So it's not an app. It's only
It's a
website.
So you have to go
Yeah.
to the website.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they don't have to follow any app store rules. So it is
So basically,
the sluttiest.
everything that Grindr wished it could be,
Yeah.
Sniffies has become. And I am
Profile
surprised.
pictures are literally just dicks.
Yeah,
And
that's exactly right. And you cut through it, and they're like, "Listen, I'm gonna be in my car. I'm driving by."
The fuck is wrong with you, straight people? Get on this!
but actually, so I will say again, as a bisexual,
Yeah.
I feel like straight people had the chance because, like, you know,
And they fucked it up!
I will say, like, you know, as a certified fuckboy, sorry, mom and dad.
I also love that you're certified.
Well, I am a certified because, like,
Where's the regulation board? I
I
want
was
to
reading
start.
the book.
Where's the class? Because I want to go take it. That's what I want to do.
It's when you're reading Zachary Zane's BoySlut, available on your favorite retailers.
Please go to Amazon. Go to our website.
Even
go
on
buy
Audible.
it. Yeah.
Narrated by the man himself.
I read it on the subway, or our version of the subway.
Right.
On my iPhone. Sometimes this way.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, at least there weren't pictures, diagrams.
But I will say when he's like, I've been with thousands, I'm just like, wait, we're counting?
Like, wait a minute, that's an option.
So we talked about this before we officially went into the show, the body count and all of that. But what is fascinating about even being able to have thousands on your list of how many people that you... I don't count because I don't want to make my former Christian Little Heart super pop up out of nowhere and make me feel guilty. But I will say, I want to get to this idea of kinks. So Zachary, when you talk to him or if you read the book, you would think he was not shy of anything.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, there is a moment of vulnerability where he is asked to go to a panel and speak about his kink, which he knows isn't for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that every person I talk to, listen, if it gets you, and you're with someone who loves it too, you guys have a good old time. But I have never felt more like a nun. Really? But he talks about there is a kink that I didn't know existed. I think I had, maybe heard about it at one time.
I didn't know it was a
About
kink until I read about it. Like, I knew I'd dealt
Yeah.
with it, but I didn't know it was a kink.
People are into it. Well, it's that idea of like anything you can think of, anything.
Yeah, can turn
Somebody
someone on.
out there is probably
So
into
he
it.
I mean,
openly
there's the
talks
whole
about
porno
finding
thing,
throwing
yeah.
up because you're really going to town, and throwing up on someone turns him on. Whether he does it to someone or whether someone does it to him. Definitely not my kink. But what I loved about him being so open and finding this ability to say something that not everybody in that audience was for, but they were all celebrating each other. I love this idea that are we at a point where in society are we at that point of our sexuality? Because that's a great thing that we can say, oh, I got some things. You know what I mean?
Well, and he mentioned this in the book as well, that, whatever you're into, there's going to be somebody out there.
Yes.
So don't be afraid to say it, 'cause more people are probably into it than you think.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think that's, true of gay, straight, or anything in
Yeah.
between.
And it's safer if you can be more open about something. Doing some things in the dark in secrecy is where the danger comes in, I think. So it's if you can be open and find it. I mean, lucky man, well, he travels the world, but he's in New York. You're probably going to have more access.
There's a few options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
have
There's
more
no
access.
Hashem community in Spokane.
I know. What did you guys think? What was your reaction when that chapter comes? Because I feel like it came without warning. And all of a sudden we're reading that. And I love that because it kind of, jars you awake and you have to honestly have those conversations with yourself.
Yeah.
What was it like discovering that chapter? Anybody can jump in.
Well, I will say, it does not surprise me. Nothing surprises me.
Right.
And again, a 20-year-old Ian would have been like, But now, you've seen some things. People are into what people are into.
Yeah.
I am for sure 1,000% not into that. But
Right.
like we talked about earlier, I love that for him.
I do,
And I'm glad that he finds people that are also into
he
it.
finds a community where that works for him.
Yes.
And also, for all of us who feel like we have something in there, maybe it is that extreme, maybe it isn't that extreme. But you're like, oh, maybe there's some, maybe I'll find something that's close to me. And I like that. Did it shock you?
No. Well, then again, I grew up.
He's just like,
So that's the thing.
nothing
Like
shocks me.
I grew up in the church, but I also
Yeah.
grew up in Texas and LA. So
Yeah.
I went to WeHo Pride. I went to
Oh.
Long Beach Pride. Okay, so it was like,
Just go once,
Ugh.
and that's all you need.
Okay.
Go to the Castro once.
wait, that's a. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is not too bad of a segue, but did we all see the outrage about Folsom this year?
There was an outrage about Folsom. Who
All-
was shocked that it happened?
All of the younger Gen Zers on Twitter were outraged about Folsom this year.
Are you? Why?
Why?
Because of what happens.
Sex
And
in
it wasn't
the
anything
streets?
that doesn't happen every year at Folsom.
Every year.
And of course people
Or
are
in
posting
New
videos on
Orleans,
Twitter or whatever,
or
but it's
in
because...
I will
It
say,
is.
okay, Gen Z, we struggled to get you here.
Yeah.
Don't cancel us.
Well,
Exactly.
and that's been
And-
the consensus
Yeah.
of everybody that's commented, because
Yeah.
they're saying people are doing these sometimes extreme things in view of other people,
Right.
but people are knowing what they're getting into. This
Yeah.
isn't like thrust upon them against
Thank
their
you.
will.
This isn't like you're
Surprise.
walking out to the Lego line
Yes,
outside to
it's
see
a
it.
it's a private
Exactly.
street in Folsom. It's been happening for 40
I will tell you,
fucking
as
years.
again, growing up in like, it was like the hood. Okay, I grew
Yeah.
up in like Van Nuys, Paramount, like it was the hood.
Exactly
Yeah.
where you're at.
So going from there to Pride was like a trek.
Yeah,
It was like you take the subway, you take the bus, and there's like
Right.
a little bit of a walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people are like, "That's in front of children." It's like, "Honey, why are you walking your children all the way down there?"
It's
Yeah.
a private
It's like-
street. You don't have to go.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing. We've been, thanks to the new Speaker of the House, the name that I will not name, he brings up, the most recent thing, he has a lot of history of hating us, is that Rome fell, I don't know if you know it, because us gay men were out there, fucking around.
Sure, checks
And
out.
I'm like, maybe look through history and say, that wasn't the only thing going on.
Yeah.
Caligula was a thing, but you know what I mean? So it's already, we're here again, and I think we try, I would like to say, I bet those voices, those Gen Zers who don't mean to like take down a culture, I don't think,
Right.
but we're amplifying that because that serves an agenda.
Yes.
That is not, because let's look at Mardi Gras, which I always tell straight people, like, why do you need gay pride? It's
Tits
Mardi
out.
Gras for
Yeah,
for
right.
so why do you need Mardi Gras? But Decadence happens very
Southern
shortly
Decadence.
after that,
Mhm.
which is amazing, and it's the same type of thing. It's what makes us think we can close our eyes and sex disappears?
Yes.
But that's also
How
back
did you
to,
get here?
Well, let's think back to like we were talking about Queer as Folk. I feel like they need to bring that back. The original series. I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
the
Let's
original
not
series.
like
Let's not
tone
water
it down for NBC.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like the original series, Brian Kinney talks about like this is how gay culture is.
Yeah.
We are not going to heterorize this place. It's just like you want that white picket fence
Yeah.
with your husband. All those kids, Volkswagen,
Right.
all that stuff. They're still going to call you faggot.
Yeah.
And to
Yep.
your point, so the Gen Z issue again, I remember watching through Queer as Folk for the first time as a young
Oh,
gay man.
yeah.
And Brian Kinney was the one where you're like, God, he's such a dick. Like, he was the
Yeah.
one that, like, I did not identify with at
Right.
all.
They made him an asshole,
But
but they made him
now-
have the most sex.
Because I just watched the whole series not that long ago, and now you're like, Brian Kinney is fucking right about
Thank you.
every goddamn
Yes,
thing. He
yes.
is right always.
Yeah.
Brian Kinney is always right.
And
geared
it's
towards
funny
the
how in
anti-hero,
retrospect
so-
we can see that. What
Yeah.
was that?
I geared towards the anti-hero,
Sure.
so my
Yeah, right?
my hero growing up was Brian
Yeah.
Kinney.
Yeah.
So that's why this book like really resonated with me
Yeah.
because a lot of the stuff that he's not afraid of talking about, I feel like that's queer culture. It's like you need
Yes.
to own it. It's our culture.
Yeah.
Like you don't
What is
edit yourself.
amazing about this book right here is that there's no apology.
Yeah.
Which is what I think what we loved about Brian Kinney.
Yeah.
It's this is who we are. I don't have to tell you whether it's right or it's wrong. It's my life.
Yeah.
It's that empowerment thing I was talking about earlier. I love that more of us can be unapologetic and say there's no reason why this guy down the street should not show me respect and me respect him
Yeah.
just because what I do in my bedroom or my backyard or wherever I
Yeah.
choose to do it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
When I think the Folsom outrage, I think the mentality is why over-sexualize the community, because that's why the conservative Christians hate us. So if we can just tone that down, maybe they won't hate us. Yeah. Well, guess what? They still will. They're still going to pass or try to pass those laws, whether you are outwardly sexual or not.
To speak to that, let's be honest, it's less about what we're doing as humans and more about we just want to control you.
Yes.
So to control you, this is a hot button issue we can use. I think it has because they're getting freaky on their own.
Well, we know house that got charged on.
We know
it's not about sex.
They don't
it's not
actually
about
care.
sexuality. It's not about gay or straight.
Politicize so they can. They know they can get votes on certain issues.
Yeah. What's the easiest way? Listen, I probably could have this conversation. Well, I could, and I have it every day. But I could have this conversation for hours. First of all, I love that I was able to find. This is what I discovered. All of my friends are as busy as I am. I'm like, damn it, I need to. And so it's very hard to get people together. But I love that you guys chose to come on this show. So thank you to each of you.
Of course.
Of course. And remember, we love BoySlut. Just do what you have to do to get out there and just own who you are. And if someone else is owning who they are and you don't understand it, you don't have to. None of us have to. We just have to love and accept each other. So, remember, you can find the QueerCentric every Tuesday at thequeercentric.com. Follow us on all the socials. We have merch. So, go to the store, buy your merch. This is, me and coffee. We have a Queerdo cup. We have this. We have a cup that I should have gotten for all of us today. This says Sexually Magnificent. In honor of our sex therapist that comes on the show every few months. But, remember, find us there. Celebrate each other. And just own who you are. So until next time, everybody, bye!
Hey, Tom! Patreon. How's it going? Patreon. I am doing great. Patreon.
Wow, are you having like a stroke or something?
What are you talking about? Patreon. That's just my weird eye. Patreon.
Well, no, I'm used to that, but you're skipping like an old CD. Should I knock you on the side of the head?
Oh, okay, calm down. Patreon. I read this thing on subliminal advertising, and since we are pushing our Patreon, I thought I'd try it out. Patreon.
Well, very subtle. I'm not sure your version of subliminal advertising is quite the method they had in mind. Patreon. Now you have me doing it.
Once you start, it's kind of hard to stop. It's kind of soothing.
And if by soothing you mean nails screeching on a chalkboard, then sure. To be very clear, it's annoying.
Yeah, I picked that up. Thanks.
We could just be straightforward and tell people to visit our Patreon at patreon.com/thequeercentric.
But I was hoping to be cool and stealth-like.
And you were accomplishing neither of those things.
You're always ruining my fun. Fine. We can just tell them that we have different levels of donations and you get cool stuff on each level and even get exclusive things.
Oh, that's the attitude. Your enthusiasm will be really contagious.
Visit us at patreon.com/thequeercentric to support us today. I mean, I swear it's fun, and we will forever be grateful.
There you go.
Patreon.
Come on, are you serious?
Leave me alone.